Today, I guess I did have something better to do. This is ChillPoint. Hey everybody, welcome to ChillPoint.
Where Paul has definitely just said that ChillPoint is better than Checkpoint.
He gets to be visible on this show. So.
Exactly.
There were a couple of comments about the after show with you and Kathleen talking.
Yeah.
And some people were like, "Oh, you should have been like a picture-in-picture thing." And I'm like, Paul could have just actually gotten up and sat in the other chair. It would have been okay.
Yeah, I could have.
He could have.
Mm-hmm. I could have, but I didn't. Maybe, in the future, if we end up doing something like that, I'll try to actually be on camera.
I had to run to a meeting, and then upon arriving at the meeting, discovered the meeting had been canceled.
Really?
I mean, I couldn't. Well, the thing is, it had de facto been canceled. It was because I'd said I'm going to be late, and then I never got a response, so I showed up late, and then discovered that they might not have gotten my message. But I had to wait to see if they were going to come back into the chat. Mm-hmm. So the entire after show chat, I'm like, I can't just come running back in here because what if they pop in the room? So I had to wait for 10-15 minutes and no, they're not coming now. My fault, whatever. Click and yeah.
I will to address some. Oh, we should start. Hey, welcome to ChillPoint. This is a show where we talk about video game news, and we also talk about the episode of Checkpoint that went up yesterday. To talk about the episode of Checkpoint and to address, some of the stuff that was in the comments, a couple of things. One, I apologize that I was not as thorough as I should have been in terms of talking about some of the other companies that I got some stuff confused with the Phoenix and
the Second Wind and Aftermath and whatnot.
Aftermath and Second Wind and that kind of stuff. So I apologize about that. And also apparently GameSpot is the one who did own GameFAQs.
Yeah, it's
not IGN.
But it's owned by Fandom now?
Now it's owned by Fandom, the people who do Wikia.
Because they were Red Ventures before that.
Right, okay.
So yeah, I sorry about that. The other thing that I saw the most consternation was, look, the picture that I used for when Kathleen says
disappointing
video game movies.
Okay, but to be fair, she did list a couple out loud.
She listed a couple out loud.
Some of those are for her.
So that's on her. I just grabbed there's lots of composite pictures out there of just here's all the video game movies. So I just grabbed one of those the idea was to illustrate the concept of video game movies. Mm-hmm. I wasn't necessarily saying that all of those pictures, all of those particular movies were the disappointing ones.
Yeah, just all but one of them.
How many video game movies have
especially
no
all but one of them.
Especially out of that graphic. Have you even seen?
Some people have I even seen? I mean, I've seen a fair number of them. I will say that I feel like I've seen a good chunk of video game movies. Some people had some very strong feelings about which video game movies are good or not. Yeah. A lot of people defending the first Mortal Kombat movie.
Okay, some of those people weren't saying the movie was good. They said they had a fun time watching it.
Yeah.
And that is okay.
That's true. You can very much enjoy watching a bad movie. That is.
I'm not, and I never watched that one, so I'm not saying it's good or not. I'm just saying that some of those comments were no, actually that movie was fine, or this movie was whatever. So I think the term that they were really down on was all video game movies are bad, outright bad. Because some of the ones I've watched, they're fine.
But I think Kathleen had a valid point in that when we as video game enthusiasts hear that a video game movie is being made, it isn't like excitement.
No.
Like the feeling is trepidation.
Yeah.
Like the feeling is like, what are they going to do this time?
And the older you are,
it might be good. There have been some good ones, but
like the older you are, the more you've been stung by this is the thing.
right.
That you go in thinking that, oh my God, they're going to make a Street Fighter movie. That sounds like it's going to be amazing. And then you're like, oh, I mean, in a way, but also kind of not. And that's that thing of the level of being, because it's also like video games based on movie or TV properties
Right.
have, no matter what, they're awful, except that they're not. There's going to be newer ones that have been made where it's like, oh, that's actually really good, or this one's
So
actually really good.
the problem
but like
is-
we got stung so many times with, oh, this has sucked and this has sucked and this has sucked, that you build up this callus of it's just going to be bad.
I think the main problem with video game movies is that a lot of them are just adaptations on a story within a video game. And a good chunk of the time, when you take just the story out of the video game, I mean, there are video games when you watch them, you're just like, why didn't this person make a movie?
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
But a lot of the time, the characters that you've come to love are because you spent like 50 hours with them. And
Right.
then you watch a movie, and it's like watching an adaptation of a book sometimes. It's cut out like a bunch of the thoughts and feelings and things that you wouldn't write down, and it feels condensed and it feels weird, and it doesn't match what you've come to love.
And the what the ludo narrative aspect of it is they say like the you playing part of it.
Yeah.
Right.
You have much
and
more-
if you look and there are a lot of video games that I have very much enjoyed and enjoyed the story of, that if I look at them objectively do not probably have a very good story or characters, but because you're the one playing it, you're kind of imbuing a certain amount of stuff into the story, and then that affects things. And so when somebody else takes that, you're like, they missed all this nuance.
Yeah.
And you look like at the actual script of the game, and it's like that actually wasn't there. You were putting that in yourself. But that's what happens when you play a game, right?
Yeah.
But like I watched, I read the book Interview with the Vampire, and then I watched the movie because I was like, sure, why not? Let's see what they did, and they changed a bunch of things, and they condensed it so much that I was kind of like, I feel like I'm watching a highlight reel almost of the book I just read.
Yeah.
And it's just it's partly that form factor, and with video games it's a lot harder as well because there's like a game with choices, right? There's also just like anime adaptations of things. We watched, what is it, The World Ends With You.
Yeah.
And I was highly disappointed. I knew that wasn't going to have the same kind of attachment for me in it anyway as an anime, because they can't make you do the fights and stuff has to kind of happen a certain way. But I was still disappointed they didn't do an entire episode about pin battling, which is just like a side game.
It's anyway. So
Also, largely, there's another thing about that too, is referencing The World Ends With You, is that I ultimately did not care about that story at all. So, and not to say it was good or bad or indifferent, it's just that there was nothing about it ultimately that ended up appealing to me. I watched the whole series with you. I was like, okay, cool, and I followed along, whatever. I don't remember much about how it ends, except there's a big battle at the end, but that's most JRPGs.
Yeah.
And I just like, the strength of that story was best expressed through the game, where you got to be a part of it and play through it and be like, hit all the beats and stuff. And I'm like, as a passive consumer of the story, of someone who's watching it happen as opposed to taking part in playing it out, it stopped being, or it didn't, I shouldn't say stopped, it was of no interest to me because I wasn't participating in it at all.
I prefer adaptations of things, especially video game wise, to be actually more, and this is it's backwards for what they're going to want to do, right? You want the embattled audience of people who already play the game. For a lot of the stuff, especially heavy story stuff, I actually want that audience to be more reflected to people who didn't play the game, because that's another avenue for those people to learn the story and like the thing, but not have to sink all of the time in that I had to sink in.
Yeah.
Because I already know the story. So ideally, if they want to make a thing, I don't want an adaptation, I want a new thing, you know?
Fair. Yeah.
They make that Legend of Zelda movie, I don't want an adaptation of Ocarina of Time. I want something different.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just actually thinking about that, like, you know, game that has, you know, not only great gameplay but lots of cool stories is, you know, just like Tears of the Kingdom, for instance. But if I looked at it from the perspective of like a movie making thing,
Yeah.
it's basically just like, you know, a dude running around helping people in a fantasy world. Like
Yeah.
there isn't.
It's pretty thin.
It's pretty thin, and you know there's the sort of larger overarching story stuff,
Yeah.
which is kind of cool, but probably wouldn't sort of sustain a thing like.
Like Lord of the Rings works because it's not about a series of fetch quests you have to perform in order to get to
Right, yeah.
putting the ring in Mordor, right? It's like you have one thing you have to do and you better go do it. And if you made a Tears of the Kingdom movie and your thing is like you have to go defeat Ganon, and it's like, okay, well, it seems to me the thing to do is if everyone's on my side, then I'd best just accumulate the couple things that I need, you know, get myself some nice armor and then go fight the dude.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, or like Breath of the Wild, where it's like, I forget everything about my life, and you start uncovering all these memories and stuff. Well, the game points you to those kind of things to be like, you need to go find this stuff because it'll illuminate what happened in the past. And it's like, okay, and that will help drive the player to feel like they're more involved to actually do the thing. But if you did that in a movie, you wouldn't have them go find all 13 memories, for example, or you wouldn't have them. There's certain
Probably
beats
not
you
like
wouldn't-
that way,
You wouldn't
right?
have to
Because
do.
those things are mechanically geared towards being a game as opposed to
Yeah.
what a movie is.
You know, you might be like, oh, it's important that he interact with all the divine beasts for some reason, but it's like, but that can't be. I go to every place and I have a fight with somebody at every one of these places because the thing just gets longer and longer and longer, and you can't tell a concise story out of that.
I think it would probably work better as a TV show.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
And
Last of Us went with a TV show route, and that gives
Yeah.
you more time to play with.
Yeah, and
So you can get a
have
little bit more detailed.
Yeah, you can have a more open way that things have to go.
But my understanding, because I haven't watched the Last of Us TV show, is they do incorporate some stuff in different ways, and they do take some stuff in different direction that maybe
Yeah.
makes more sense in that sort of medium than it would in, say, a video game, because
Like I think
you
I mean
can do different things.
I think you could do some interesting stuff with, you know, something like, say, how they did like sort of the Scott Pilgrim stuff, where the story in the different mediums, in the movie, in the TV shows, in the manga, or in the comic, is following the same characters, and similar story beats happen,
Yeah.
but they actually sort of do it differently.
Yeah, they all mean something different.
And the idea of that kind of the idea of kind of taking a scenario from a video game and telling a different story with it, ironically, is something that's happened with some video game movies. I don't know if it was intentional. Like, for instance, like the Resident Evil series in the movies went completely off the rails.
Yeah,
Very different. Yeah.
Well, the video games also went completely off the rails, but they went differently off the rails. They were not connected in any way.
yeah.
Or you get
There was some argument at one point, especially as Resident Evil, the video games were getting kind of, you know, some bad stuff. People were like, the movies are actually better in terms of just like a story.
Yeah.
Even though they're bonkers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of strange, right? Like, I know this is about like the fact that they want to make a Sims movie, right?
Right.
So comparing it to something like the Barbie movie is like saying, so you kind of expect the story to be they realize that they're in a Sims game, maybe, or is it going to be maybe more like Sonic, where these are just things, how things exist, and
Yeah, like
there's
I
some
can.
weird intricacies. Or we're gonna do what the D&D movie did, where it's really just kind of a normal blank style movie, but it references a bunch of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be interesting. And
Or what, the GTA movie, where it's gonna be about a person playing The Sims.
Or the Lego movie.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, the Lego movie.
I do. Yeah, it's hard to get away from it, but I kind of hope that they don't do the sort of even though like I quite enjoyed the Free Guy, the
Yeah,
Ryan Reynolds.
Free Guy
Oh,
was
Free Guy was
great.
pretty good. Yeah,
It was good. I kind of hope that Sims doesn't do that.
do that route.
Do the like Sims realizing they're Sims or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel like there's other things that they could do that'd be interesting with that. Interestingly, though, with the Sims, folks who have played The Sims a lot more than I have, I've sort of, I feel like I've encountered this kind of peripherally through ChillPoint stuff when I sort of read random bits of news about whatever the new expansion for The Sims comes out that makes me realize that what I think of the game of The Sims is actually quite different from what The Sims actually is these days. And one of the things they talk about, one of the things that people mention stuff is that there actually is story.
Okay.
Like because there's little there's sort of pre-made
yeah.
families.
I remember playing some of
groups
those.
and stuff, and they can have like quite an in-depth story and different things that happen to them and different stuff that goes on.
I've never heard of anyone playing any pre-made. I had no idea there were pre-made
Oh
anything
yeah,
in
that's
that
how I
game.
got game overs.
I see.
Yeah, I played a pre-made in, I think it was Sims 3, where you have like there's a older kind of like grandmother and then like child, and grandmother died, and there were also ghosts in the house, and then the child was of age, so that was fine, but she was a wreck from the death, and then a ghost snuck up behind her and scared her to death, and then I got a game over because all of my Sims were dead.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't know you could get a game over in that game until that point.
Wow.
Yeah.
But there's like RPG stuff in it. There's all sorts of weird. Anyway, so who knows what'll happen with that? But yeah, let's
I
talk
think that was
about,
like later in the thing. What was our first story?
yeah. The first story we talked about was Apex Legends.
Yeah. The
Which-
trick that you use in order to get better reference videos is really what it comes down to. It's just
Yeah.
that Apex was using it.
This is a fun idea that with this was sort of revealed. So GDC is happening right now, by the way, which is where some of this stuff is coming out. And yeah, this idea that, what I find quite interesting about that is that sort of the like that subtle distinction between, apparently it's like it's not only that it's a better positioning for the camera. Instead of
Versus
having it
here,
up on your forehead. Also, it's like, if you have like a GoPro, then you have to like grab the footage from the GoPro and get all the stuff going and stuff. It's more work to do. Whereas, if
You just immediately start swiping through your phone and you have it there, and you're like, I can just have my phone sitting next to my desk so I can see all my videos immediately. And yeah, it makes it so convenient for anyone who's unaware. Put a pop socket on a case or whatever, have your camera facing out, pop it into your mouth, and then you have both your hands free to like do whatever you need to do on camera. So you can be walking around with like, okay, he's gonna have a gun. It's gonna look like this. Oh, right. And you're looking out of your mouth, so you're holding it like so it feels more accurate. Because if you have it up high, the angle's really high, and then you start to have things where it's like your arm's quite low, and it's like, why does everything look like that?
just the picture that was with the presentation. I don't know. Somebody with like a phone in their mouth and like two knives, just being like, ah,
Yep.
like, ah, they're
Just
gonna
run it.
stab me and get really good footage of it.
Yeah.
Help.
What I do find funny is they also talk about in the article about how it's Hayden Cooper, I think is their name. How they're like they showed off things like Wraith plays with their kunai, so they spin it or whatever in their hand, and I'm like, they don't show the video of it, but I'm like, if that is the thing where it's like, well, I have to animate how to do this, so what do I do? Well, now I'm gonna have to get really good at playing with these weapons to kind of get a sense of this is what it would look like, this is how the hands would move, and this is how everything would look. So you have to be good at that so you can represent it in reference video.
I've seen lots of stuff with that like animators. There is a not insubstantial overlap between like animators and like animators doing their own motion capture. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Not just because just it's convenient, but also and they know exactly what they want. But it's just like. I saw a great interview with a woman who was talking about, and it's like, she can, work for a few hours on animation stuff and then like blow off some steam, like doing all sorts of cool swords things in like the motion capture thing, and then go back and use that motion capture to do other stuff. It's like a great combination. But and I love the idea, like, there's that great thing a few years ago about Firewatch, and talking about how the
Henry or whatever his name is?
The model of the person that you play in Firewatch is like this weird, totally weird shaped like homunculus with like giant arms and legs.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's what looks proper from the angle.
Was it a paparazzi that has the camera with legs and arms and stuff that's stretched out weird because you taking pictures in the game, so the model is literally like a weird camera with extra bits.
Yeah. It's just
there's occasionally someone will post there'll be like a scene that gets like shown in an anime or something where a person gets really close to somebody on a table, but like they're sitting way back, and so someone will draw a picture of what that looks like from an angle where you can actually see what they would be moving like, and it's just like their arms would have to be like 6 feet extra long and stuff.
All that.
All those kinds of cheats that you put in.
Actually, speaking of Apex Legends, there was another story. Might as well jump into that now. There's another story about Apex Legends because they were doing a big tournament this weekend.
Okay.
Or last weekend, I should say. And they had to cancel the tournament halfway through because it got seriously hacked. So in the middle, there's the video is actually pretty amazing. In the middle of the tournament, one of the front runners of the tournament suddenly has cheats turned on. Like can see through walls and stuff and can see all the other guys, and he's like, help, I'm cheating, what, help, guys, and the guy's like, help, guys, I'm cheating, I don't know what's happening. He dropped out, like he drops out of the game,
right?
And then somebody else had basically the same thing where he started aimbotting, like he started his cursor started just like locking two people's heads,
right?
And he was like, "Whoa, hey, I'm not doing this. What's going on?" Right?
Yeah.
And it turned out that a guy named who goes by the handle Destroyer 2009, it sort of did this to the tournament, and it was one of these interesting sort of. Maybe it'd be considered gray hat hacking,
right? In
the sense that,
I'm trying to do this to get some attention on something.
So professionals, professional esports people have been caught cheating many times.
Right.
Sure.
Legitimately.
Yeah.
And this, like, so what happened? This person did this, but also, like in the chat, in the in-game chat, was like the Destroyer 2009 Apex hacking tournament, but like did a bunch of stuff to make it clear to make it clear to observers that this wasn't just like the guy fucked up and turned on his cheats by mistake,
Right.
Which is a thing that has definitely happened.
Has
People
happened, yeah.
people going like, "Oh, that's
yeah,
weird.
they've
My
definitely said
roommate
that
was
they did
playing
that.
on this
Yeah.
game
Yeah.
and must have turned those on."
No, wanted to be clear. It's like don't give these guys the credit for having all their cheats on. Give me the credit for the fact that I hacked them into having cheats. But they didn't make it clear whether or not it was like, I'm doing this for a beneficial purpose to point out that, hey, guess what? You can do this to other players.
So yeah, as Marquette posted there, ostensibly, his point, he was doing it in order, he was drawing attention to this server problem,
I see.
so that it could be patched. But because they don't have a bounty program, he didn't actually tell them what it was.
Mm-hmm. I found out a way to hack your program, but because you won't pay me to tell you about it, I'm not going to tell you about it.
I mean,
is like, I get that.
kind of legit, I guess.
I kind of get the idea, but at the same time, it's like no company is like at. It makes sense for a company to put up a bug bounty program.
Yeah.
I think to be
Yeah.
like we
Well,
want
yeah,
to know.
lots of companies do
lots
bug
of
bounties.
them have
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, but no company should ever be under an obligation to have to do that and thereby be like, okay, well now you're beholden to me because I have made a unilateral decision that it is okay to hack you and to embarrass you and to do all these things to you because you wouldn't have a legitimate way to pay me to show you this stuff in the first place. I'm like, I don't know if that's not a reinforcement of any sort of good behavior.
I guess. I mean, this guy's premise is that they know that they do already. He thinks that they do already know that this is a problem.
And they just haven't patched it because they
Yeah.
are lazy or they're incompetent or after all, they made the game. How good could they be at doing anything?
Apparently, one of the other things that someone who appears to be the same person, again, you have to be tricky. You have to be careful about all these things because, I mean, there's no way to verify that anybody saying they're Destroyer 2009 is in fact the same Destroyer 2009.
Fair.
But one of the other things that has been happening is people will be somebody will be in a game, and again, often high profile, Apex streamers or esports, high up people who have a lot of viewers and stuff, right? To get a lot of to get a lot of clout for it. They'll be playing along, and then just like 30 like not NPCs but like bots will just like spawn in like 10 feet above the guy and just like drop around him and start attacking him. And they're all named like Destroyer 0091, Destroyer 0092.
Okay. Wow.
Basically illustrating that he has, some sort of access to the server itself as opposed to just somebody's.
Yeah.
So,
And
anyway.
also just
Interesting.
to like remind people, just because the username has the numbers 2009 in it, that's not necessarily a birth year. It does not necessarily mean this person's 15.
Yeah.
Weirdly, they don't verify what your birth year is when you make up a username.
No.
And
So
only let people with
2009
that
could be some
do
other important name for this.
It's
Yeah, just saying.
It's definitely like it is definitely not a this is a script kiddie doing whatever, right? This is somebody who clearly has a lot of knowledge and is good at what they do. So I'm not saying that, the hacker sucks because of whatever. I'm like, no, I'm just saying I think it's hard to justify that, well, they don't have a bug bounty program and so therefore I have to go out of my way to do these things this way. I disagree with the perspective like that. It doesn't mean that I don't think they have skill.
Yeah.
They definitely
No.
have skill.
And so, I mean, this is an interview with TechCrunch that they did. Say, just imagine if it wasn't a joke and we didn't put memes in the chat. I'm pretty sure you could ruin somebody's career if you had a cheat pop up in a tournament. So, you know.
Give them, I will give them props for that too, to be like, I did this, they did not. Don't blame them. Yeah.
And they're saying, that they, and so they have postponed the, they've postponed the tournament until they can figure out what the heck happened. And now, ironically, because I mean, this opens up questions of like, it's like, one, is this a bug in this, you know, have the servers for the game been compromised?
Okay.
Have the servers for the game been compromised in the sense that this person is able to send stuff to them and have them do, you know, add things to on the server side, or have they been compromised in the sense that like somebody at Respawn Entertainment is messing with stuff?
Oh, I see. That's
is it like an inside thing? Then the other thing that people are very concerned about is it that the servers have been compromised, or is it that the client is compromised? Right. Is this a what's called a RCE, or remote code execution?
Right.
On the client side.
Right.
Is this something that could this hack? Could this person put code onto client computers? You know, could people be could he be turning computers into whatever, Bitcoin mining rigs, or doing, you know, whatever hacking,
Right. So they have to like
stealing info and stuff.
they have to narrow down what the issue is first before they can resume their turn.
And of course the community is very concerned about this kind of stuff. Ironically, one of the things that people thought might be a good thing is that there could be a remote exploit in the anti-cheat software called Easy Anti-Cheat is the software that it uses, and so there's the idea that there could be which they have, like the people who make that is like, we've checked, there's nothing, but of course they would say that because they would, you know, they're it's in their interest to say that there is nothing wrong with their system.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
all right.
Anyway,
So
what else we got going on?
What was so we covered the first story.
Overwatch 2.
Overwatch 2
is chugging away, having some troubles.
Still, it's trying, I guess.
The big thing that has sort of came up was, and there was news in here, was talking about that the PVE or aka the like single player campaign has which sort of was one of the big things that was touted as the reason why they went to Overwatch 2 rather than just more Overwatch, is dropped sort of even farther down the priority list, even farther down than what it was already, which they had already pulled back from the idea when Overwatch 2 first came out, where there's this like champion thing, where there's going to be like a whole progression system for all the characters and all this stuff.
Oh, okay.
Which they ditched that a couple months ago, or a year ago or something. And said, but we're going to have these like single player, we're going to have these campaign missions. And then they brought out a couple of those, and they haven't really talked about it anymore. And the most recent update to the UI has like moved them from being like a prominent square to being kind of over on the side.
Okay.
And not having it like an icon anymore. It just says missions. And apparently folks who have left, you know,
So former developers
are like, you know, we've been working on this for like 5 years. Like, we could have brought out PvE missions like 5 years ago.
And now we want to talk about why this happened.
And yeah, and we've been,
Okay.
you know, we've been trying, we've been dicking around with these things, and they keep saying that, you know, we can't, the basically they're the sort of requirements and the stuff for PvE missions and PvP stuff are in a lot of ways kind of diametrically opposed to each other,
Right.
like balancing and all this kind of stuff.
And if you've worked on Overwatch, it's a PvP game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so for them to say, we're going to make a new Overwatch that has that element in it, but also have these story missions with PvE, and that was all a plan that the producers and the executives and everybody was on board with, and then at some point...
And at some point, yeah,
the executives were like, hey, but what if now this? But what if now that? And that just kept pushing things further and further back.
and probably probably a combination of one of these things where, you know, we know that Overwatch has gone through a bit of a churn in terms of the upper management, both because of various scandals.
Yeah.
They lost a bunch of their high-level people because
I mean, didn't
of
they
the,
lose their story director like a couple years in too? And like,
Yeah.
like just the kinds of people that you don't want to be missing.
Yeah. And so, you know, it could be one, often you have situations where there's, you know, when the director or the, you know, high up people are like, this is what I want to do.
Right.
And then, you know, that person leaves and a new person comes in and has a different direction for what they're thinking
Yeah.
about.
Sometimes it's even as
Yeah.
much as, what did the last guy want to do? No. Tear it all down. We're doing it the way I want to do it. That happens a lot too, where someone's like, I'm going to leave my mark and I'm not going to let the other guy leave his mark because I happen to hate that guy. That happens a lot.
And now,
More than we would like it to.
and, you know, of course now, Blizzard's owned by Microsoft, you know, now that whole thing is, you know, and then there was the whole sort of uncertainty around that, and then now that's gone through, a bunch of people have gotten let go.
Mm-hmm. Golden
Rumor
parachutes.
is there's some speculation that that the layoffs may have disproportionately affected the PvE section of the Overwatch team.
Yes.
So yeah, not great. And yeah,
It is actually kind of a shame to watch how much Overwatch 2 seems to be just constantly falling down a set of stairs and never being able to get its purchase right when Overwatch 1...
falling down the escalator.
Yeah, because Overwatch 1 was fine.
Well, and the thing
Right?
is,
Like, it was stable and good. And I mean, I didn't play these games, but based on like my friends playing them, like Overwatch seemed like it was good the way it was.
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't seem, and the other thing that's frustrating is like it doesn't seem like any of the problems that Overwatch 2 is having is anything with the game itself, right? Like people seem to be still enjoying the actual like gameplay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
It's
That's something.
It's that they keep, you know, they keep changing, stopping, and then starting the esports initiatives,
Yeah.
calling them new things, changing the system, then
Yeah, but then
resetting it
we
and changing
had that.
it
We
again.
had the whole thing where it's like you needed a phone number or credit
Yeah.
card, and then I think they changed that to something slightly different. The PVE versus the PvP thing, just the amount of like battle passes and other stuff. I don't know.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
there was like, it just kind of felt like anytime anything came up about Overwatch 2, it's
There's
like
not been- yeah.
something bad is happening.
And yeah, that is seems to be like the case. And then there's this idea that I find extremely frustrating in this article, or in this thing, was just talking about that this idea of this quote unquote Blizzard quality being used as kind of a stick or being and because like I remember that, like I remember that there was this kind of like Blizzard had this, I mean, it sort of had that Valve thing
Yeah.
where it was like, you know, it'll be done when it's done.
Yeah.
and when it's done, it's going to blow your mind.
Right.
And sometimes that means, and I remember when I was in us collectively mourning the loss of StarCraft Ghost, right? Was this rumored game that was like way high, was going to be like a first-person StarCraft thing where you play as a ghost, and we were all excited about it, and then it got canceled before anything came, and they had spent years working on it and stuff, and it's like, that's the Blizzard quality thing, right? That's that they're like, no, this is not going to be good enough. We're going to cancel this, and then it was like, that's tough, but I can respect that.
Yeah, well, I
And-
mean, because to a certain aspect, well, after you've been, if you're a company that's established as doing something for a while, you don't want to be seen as turning into garbage, right? There's a certain kind of quality you do want to be maintaining,
And there's this idea, and so
which then sucks when they're not.
and so this idea that like in the the whatever corporate dystopia kind of idea that even like not only are you do games and stuff come out that are crappy cut rate stuff comes out,
Yeah.
but then also on the other side of it, the just the idea that something should be able to reach a certain, it has to be really good and has to hit a level of quality. The idea of that being used as an excuse to sort of not do stuff, or to kind of as kind of a whatever a stick to
Like a
sort of
cudgel
beat-
to-
cudgel is incredibly frustrating. It's like you can either put out crappy stuff, or they can be demanding the best stuff and using that as the excuse to bring out terrible stuff.
Yeah. It's like, we got to get to somewhere, and it's like, well, we've beaten on this thing too long.
Yeah.
So
Well, that was a fun story. Is there a different one?
yeah. Let's talk about Stardew Valley.
I like Stardew Valley. I
Yeah.
hear it got a huge update that lets you drink mayonnaise.
It's cozy. So yeah, it was kind of funny. So Stardew Valley 1.6 just came out, and of course, but this story is not about Stardew Valley 1.6.
Oh, wow.
Except this is about because 1.6 came out, Concerned Ape,
The sole programmer / artist /
Eric.
composer.
Eric Barone,
Yeah.
who did an interview with what kind of stuff he's got, to make the whole programming aspect more relaxed and comfortable. for him.
Now, I want to
He's
say.
like, I spent a lot of time on the computer.
Yes.
Yes.
So I
What do
need to make it-
you want to say?
What I want to
Beach?
say is this interview. I think I
This is
feel like.
the Polygon article.
Yeah, the Polygon article that got put up that regards this, and go check it out. But when you think about what's going on in this interview, it becomes a lot more clear about, or I can speculate about what happened here. That's
Yes, you
what I'm
can.
gonna say.
Beach is going to speculate now.
Yeah, and I
Welcome to
don't
Beach's
always like to
speculation
speculate,
corner.
but I've already done it twice today, so we're gonna keep going.
Okay.
When
I-
would you not like to speculate?
I think what happened here
I think
is
he likes to just say
because I think
that.
it's their business, one of their business reporters is the person who contacted them for the interview. So I think what happened here was, I'm going to get an interview with Concerned Ape because he's working on Haunted Chocolatier, and we're going to ask some questions about how the 1.6 update has gone because it's now coming out, and like tell me about whatever, right? Concerned Ape, apparently, according to the article anyway, is like very reticent to talk extemporaneously about his life. I think is kind of the thing. He doesn't want to go into a lot of great detail. And so
That seems fine to me.
it's borne out by some of these responses because it doesn't feel like they got an incredibly exhaustive interview about his life. He answered a few questions and they got maybe about 8 sentences, 10 sentences overall. And they're like, all right, well, time to tease this shit out into an article. And props to the author because you found a way to make it very fun and a very different way to come at an interview like this, because it is essentially a GQ loadout article. It's like, hey, what do you keep in your bag? Hey, what do you have on your desk? Hey, so what are the 10 things you can't live without? Like, we've seen that shit all the time.
Okay. But like, so.
And I love this. I think they should do this for more devs, actually.
During the lead up to 1.6 coming out, one of the first things that happened was, or at least that I noticed on the different social medias, was Concerned Ape posted a screenshot with just the line that says, "You can now drink mayonnaise." As part of the thing. Yeah. And everybody was retweeting that and quote tweeting and doing whatever and making fun of it. But then, like, the day that 1.6 was supposed to land, because everybody knew what day it was supposed to come out.
They're waiting for it, and they're waiting for it, and they're refreshing
Concerned
Steam
Ape
and refreshing
made a
Steam.
post that said, "Getting coffee." And I was just like, this is great.
Yeah.
This is I'm not going to be able to play this new patch for ages, but I'm enjoying this little madness circle going on right now.
Concerned Ape, he seems like a kind of guy that they would be like, oh man, this guy, you're a super hot developer.
Yeah.
You're making this game that's super popular, and like they want to like whatever, get him on like MTV Cribs or something.
Yeah,
we want to show your awesome setup, and then he's just like, yep, here's my apartment.
Yeah, this is the jacket that I like to wear when I'm coding.
And they're just like, we can't use this footage.
There's one thing we have to point out about Beej's story. Somebody pointed out that Bed Bath & Beyond is out of business.
It's true.
But I did buy my pillow there several years ago.
I was going to say, Beej's pillow didn't explode upon the business selling out. That did not happen. It still exists, and that is where he purchased it from.
Yeah,
Or
I even know
you
the
won't
brand
be
name.
able to. You have to get yours elsewhere.
Yeah.
But the question is, was your mention of Bed Bath & Beyond a secret tip-off to what I believe Bed Bath & Beyond is wrapped up in the
Please don't say Activision Blizzard acquisition.
No. It's in the like the like GameStop stock thing.
Oh, okay.
Because like a guy who owns like a big chunk of GameStop also bought a big chunk of Bed Bath & Beyond, and so they're like, oh, that's part of the whole deal. He's secretly telling us that we should be getting in on Big Bath. Yeah.
Bed Bath & Beyond was bought by Overstock, and they are using it.
Was it in Seattle that where were we when we came across the Bed Bath & Beyond that was empty?
Oh, that was in Seattle.
That was in Seattle.
That was amazing too, because it's just this.
Because all the signage was still up, but
there's nothing in the store.
And there was the stairs that had like a sign that was like more upstairs.
It says there's more upstairs. It's all exciting, and I'm like, there's nothing downstairs.
Yeah, it was really cool.
There's more upstairs, and I'm like, there's more of what?
It is all beyond
liminal space.
Yeah.
But as far and why not we're doing an LRR Cribs, then why not let's do that myself. I did indeed buy a buckwheat pillow a while ago because I could find an incredible deal on getting one, because I thought about making my own, but that would have been having to I need an empty pillow sack that also has a zipper on it that I can fill with buckwheat that's also not going to leak through the thing. So that's complicated. And what I found was this company made a combination called Bucky. The name of the company doesn't matter. They made a combination buckwheat millet pillow. And millet is a much finer grain. And so the top of the pillow is buckwheat and the bottom is millet, and they each have a zipper to their own compartment, which means that you can take out as much of the grain or put more in or balance it however you want to make it however you want. And so what I did I tried it immediately. I'm like, this thing is way too firm. It doesn't work. So then I emptied out some of the buckwheat into one bag, and I emptied out some of the millet into another bag, and I tried again. It still didn't work, and I eventually just emptied all the millet into a bag, and I'm like, great, now I have a pillow that is half full of buckwheat, and to sleep on it, what I do is, because let's just get into this, what I do is I take the pillow and I cut it in half with my hand. So I hang half of the hulls on either side, and then I take that and put it behind my head, so I have a big buckwheat thing on one side and a big buckwheat thing on another side, and a little bit of buckwheat just kind of makes it down to the middle where my neck is, and it kind of just holds my head in position completely straight while I'm on the bed.
Yeah.
That's how I sleep.
The Meerkat asked what was the cool thing about buckwheat pillows. Are they softer than down or something?
No.
It's the opposite.
Ironically, it's that they don't retain heat and therefore they're supposed to be cooler.
Yeah, buckwheat hulls are
down-
supposed to rub against each other and
Yeah.
kind of move around a bit, but they tend to lock
Like
into
down
position.
pillows will be very soft, but they will really make you warm. So if you have like a lot of
head heat.
head heat, they can be really uncomfortable, especially in the summer for that reason.
But like buckwheat hulls are supposed to be breathable, and this is a classic, like a Japanese pillows from the old days, the ones that are like the little round thing that sits on the little wooden thing. I have no idea how anybody sleeps on that, but they do. That's buckwheat. Or buckwheat hulls rather. And so I was like, oh, I can probably build my own. I can just buy like a kilogram of buckwheat hulls and do it myself.
I'm not really fond of
For the price,
laying down on one though.
yeah, for the price, it doesn't really work. And then I've also found too that I'm like, it is more firm than people say it is, because like it's great because they slide around and like they don't really, once they hit a certain point, they kind of lock in.
Yeah, the idea they're not really like soft, but they sort of mold to the shape.
Yeah.
Is the idea.
And I don't mind it so much, but I also sleep with like, I basically have the pillow itself, which is like the thin nylon whatever. It comes with a pillowcase that has a zipper on it, so you can put it in the pillowcase and seal it so it's the right size. And then I put another pillowcase on that because I don't like to sleep on the pillowcase that it comes with.
It is kind of textured weird.
Yeah, it's a thicker cotton, and that's fine. I'd like to sleep on something thinner, but I also don't want to just put the naked bag of buckwheat into my normal pillowcase because I'm concerned that it will actually take some damage and split. So I'm actually sleeping on like something that's 3 layers of fabric thick, and it is still quite warm.
I'm slightly, I don't know. I'm sure this is not actually a thing, but
It's not even about video games anymore.
You know, but I'm like slightly. My concern about buckwheat pillow is that like somehow it'll like start sprouting.
Ah, yes. These are hulls, so all the wheat has been ground out.
Yeah,
of
all
them.
the parts that can sprout aren't in them anymore.
Yeah.
But even if it was,
Well, maybe they missed one.
Yeah, they could technically.
I'm not sure it's really the ideal environment for it to do that.
Yeah.
You know, it's missing a number of key ingredients.
Anyway,
I thought about sleeping on a water pillow though, because those actually are cool because they do suck heat away from your head, but
that makes sense. Yeah.
They are heavy and difficult.
Hey, let's talk about. So
We're going to talk about the patch notes.
we have to talk
ones,
about the
right?
actual patch notes,
Oh, thank
which
goodness.
we didn't talk about in the episode ChillPoint. But yeah, there's lots of. In fact, Polygon has an article of Stardew Valley 1.6's goofiest patch notes and updates, including such things as spouses now have a 7-day honeymoon period after marriage, which prevents them from laying in bed all day due to being upset.
Oh God. Wait, so you can get married immediately, and then they can just be like, you know what? I'm mad that we got married.
Well, no, but now they have a 7-day
Well, now they're
period
in
where
the
they can't
honeymoon
get.
period,
Yeah,
so-
they're not allowed to be mad for 7 days after the wedding.
Yeah, that sounds how ours went too. I think, right?
That's all you get.
I don't even remember what we did after the wedding. Did we just watch more Star Trek? I
We
think that's
did.
what we were doing before the wedding and then after.
Yeah, that entire weekend
there
was
was
the
like
Star
a-
Trek marathon. So we just basically after the wedding went home. And we're
Yeah,
like, what do you want to do?
we spent
It's
a lot of time just.
I guess
So-
we'll watch
watching
Insurrection.
TV, Yeah.
You can toss your baby once
Yeah.
per day.
Oh, that's nice.
like up in the air and then back like
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
like in the garbage.
Yeah, and that
the
increases your
composter.
friendship level. But now you can crit when you when you toss your baby, which you get even more.
I hate to.
It means it's like a particularly good baby toss. Your baby is very happy then.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That sounds scary. I thought these were going to be fun and not terrifying.
If you
I
wear
love this.
if you're wearing the Cinder Clown shoes, there's a jingling sound now when you're running with the
Good.
Cinder
That
Clown
means
shoes.
that seems. Yes.
Finally, you can put hats on cats and dogs.
Oh, good.
Yeah. See, I think.
Why wasn't that already
I
in
think
there?
that should definitely have already been in there. I think though, every time you try to put a hat on a cat, it should shake it off.
Yeah.
Because I believe a dog will wear a hat. I've seen the way cats look when you put hats on their heads.
Yeah, you have to have a very special cat to wear a hat.
Yeah, I
Like
think
your
we need a
friendship
new-
level with your cat should be very high for it to wear that hat.
We need a new there's the can you pet the dog like, can you hat the dog? That's the next level.
Yeah. Can you hat your dog? Yeah.
Can the dog wear a hat?
What was the oh man, there was that game I played where you can go pet the dog, but when you do, the dog like jumps on your skateboard and you do like a fist pump and then like another thing, and it's all rhythm based.
Wow, that sounds awesome.
It's actually pretty elaborate for one of the pet the dog things I've come across. I played that super recently too. Why can't I remember its name? I keep thinking of Venba, which is not the game that it was.
Invisible spouses won't ask for children anymore.
That's a relief.
Are they still invisible spouses?
Yeah, apparently you can have a ghost spouse. So that's kind of fun. But now they won't ask for children, which is probably for the best.
I guess.
Because depending on how you play it, I mean, they've solved this problem in Star Trek Next Generation already. That if you have a ghost spouse who wants to have a child, it just doesn't work out ultimately. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a sci-fi show, and just based out of every kind of pregnancy thing I've seen happen in a sci-fi show, they don't go well for anyone.
Yeah, especially the women.
They don't survive most of the time. They're usually dead.
Okay, so are we done with patch notes? Or there's more patch notes? Patch notes.
There's only one more thing,
There's one more
which
you
is
wanna
my
go over.
favorite.
There's definitely more than that, but like
Yeah, the addition of raisins, which have a special use.
oh, it just says there's a special use. Can you smoke them?
You can smoke them, just like in Clone High.
Thirsty Suitors, yes, that's right. Thank you, Peach. Yeah, in Thirsty Suitors, you can pet the dog, and it does all this other stuff. It's really cute.
All right, so you can come back if you're waiting to not be spoiled by patch notes.
Yeah.
I think we're done with the patch notes.
The chat will have to tell them.
Alrighty.
What else did we have? We had one more story, didn't we?
So the other story we talked about was the Sims.
Oh, right, we already
movie,
talked
which
about
we talked about that. And then also Plunderstorm.
Yeah.
Which apparently is actually kind of cool.
Plunderstorm?
It is the latest. It's not like a full update, but it is
A WoW expansion.
the latest thing. Or it's not like a full
okay.
expansion. It's like a mid-tier.
It's a thing in World of Warcraft.
but it's a new thing that's coming out for WoW.
Okay.
That is like kind of a whole separate mode.
So a WoW edition, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where they're doing these like 60-player battle royale things, and so
Yeah.
internally we saw that news. We were just like, yes,
Yeah. WoW had to become a battle royale at some point, and now it also has pirates.
Always at the cutting edge of video game stuff.
Well, I mean, all the kinks should be worked out, right? Like 60 players.
Yeah.
So I assume they know how many people are coming online to play still.
Pirate, and it's a pirate one. So, because Skull and Bones has made sure that pirates are super popular right now. The funniest thing, of course,
When are pirates actually not popular?
it's true.
Can
I don't
someone
think
tell me if there's like a non-popular time for a pirate that's not the 1600s?
I just think it's cyclical. Like I think it is one of those things where because it's like, oh, pirates are a thing now we're going to do because 3 gaming companies all decided to do pirates because they hadn't seen pirates in a while. Then the cycle repeats.
I think the funniest thing would be if this becomes very popular, and World of Warcraft has the same thing that Fortnite did, where like the actual original Fortnite game where you built forts and tried to stop monsters from attacking you in the night. And that got completely overshadowed by the battle royale part of Fortnite. And if that happened to WoW as well,
Yeah, they're seeing where you were going with this.
After all these years, that it's like WoW. Oh yeah, WoW. The battle royale game.
Yeah, just turns into that.
I guess everybody has to do a battle royale game at some point.
Apparently.
I feel like that if you go to some sort of I don't know, video game school, one of your classes probably is about battle royales at this point, right? I don't really know how video game school works outside of what I've seen in TV shows, which is definitely going to be full of lies.
They've got to. Yeah, I mean, it's taken a while for them to work on it, though. You know, because of course they had to make sure that it had that Blizzard quality. Anyway, let's talk about a few other things.
While we're weathering that snowstorm. What else is there?
There's a Riven remake coming.
I don't know what that is.
Riven, aka the sequel to Myst.
Oh, Myst had a sequel?
Yeah, it was called Riven.
Wow. Tell me more.
It was super great. It was also really hard. It was.
I see.
It was like much more difficult than Myst. I found anyway. Maybe other people didn't find that. But it had some just brutal puzzles in it. But yeah, they're remaking it in as a real time thing in Unreal, whatever. And it's also going to be VR. What's kind of cool is that the Starry Expanse project was a fan-driven remake that had already been like in works.
Okay.
And they actually Cyan Worlds, the company Cyan was the company that made Myst originally.
Okay.
I suspect that this company, Cyan Worlds, it's one of those situations where it might not have that much relationship with that original company that made Myst.
Right.
But whatever the case, the Cyan Worlds has actually been working with this fan project to incorporate the stuff that they had already done into this official remake, which is kind of neat. But it is, they haven't said what platforms it is, but it says it will be VR.
Okay.
Which is kind of cool, or there will be VR versions.
Okay. Well, I mean, you can get VR technically on like PlayStation. I don't think Xbox does it, right? PlayStation's really the only console.
Yeah.
I think
And
it
then
would
otherwise it's like Meta and whatever works on PC.
I think it would be very funny if they released it as a exclusive, temporary, like time-based exclusive for the Apple Vision Pro. Just to kind of really tie into the
that Mac thing, yeah.
Yeah, because Myst came out on the Mac
Can-
and was kind of like a because it was originally written in HyperCard, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can the Apple Vision Pro do VR? Because I thought that was more AR.
It can do VR-ish stuff.
VR-ish stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. I kind of don't see that being its systems.
You've heard of the 1%.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
about Team 0%?
Oh, I've heard of them too.
Okay.
So a couple years ago, actually this is quite a few years ago now, there were a lot of uncleared levels in Super Mario Maker.
Which would mean that they were levels that only the creator ever cleared.
Yeah.
And nobody else had actually cleared after.
Nobody else
Yeah.
has managed to
Because
clear.
that was the thing. In order to get a level put online, you had to clear it yourself
To prove it was possible.
to show that it was possible. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And so this is the original Wii U Super Mario Maker. There were apparently 85,000 uncleared levels in the original.
That doesn't surprise me.
Levels that had never been beaten except by anyone except the original uploaders. So a group of players were named themselves Group or Team 0%. And they have spent the last few years narrowing the list of uncleared levels down. So
Good.
making every level. This is the
Yeah.
Wii U Super Mario Maker.
Yeah.
Last I heard, they had like 3 levels left.
There's one level.
They're down to 1 now.
There's one level left. The problem is,
They have a time limit, don't they?
yeah, April 8th is when Nintendo is shutting down Wii U's game,
Okay.
the Wii U version of Mario Maker's
They
game
got
servers.
like maybe 2.5 weeks.
So there's one level left, and as you can imagine what kind of complete malarkey this level is.
Oh yeah. I love though the idea that I know you're probably going to key up maybe a screenshot or something to just kind of give people an idea. But what I love about this idea is that the people who belong to this team, of course, they would have probably spread out and been like, okay, everybody pick a 0% finish game and then actually or level and actually go play it and devote some time to finishing. It's going to be lots of those that are just like, nobody ever played this. It's easy, but nobody actually ever played it because it just was like something that nobody ever discovered. So they probably, many of them are playing individually on their own, I'm sure, to get to a point where it's like they start ticking down and ticking down and ticking down. Next thing you know, there's like, oh, there's only 3 levels left. So now all of them are concentrating on a very small amount of levels to the point now there's only 1 left, and it's like everyone's probably playing this one level over and over and over again to try to finish
I
it.
wonder how long you can make the levels. It's been a long time since we've messed around with.
There have been people who have made Mario Maker levels where they have made them based on timing, where you have to basically sit and wait for a very long time until everything is going to line up properly, and then that's when you actually go through it. Yeah.
But like, there's like, I mean, like in the sense of, if you were to just walk from one end to the other, like what's the level length like? And then they're gonna have stuff that like platforming in the middle, of course. But it's like when people try to time out how long it takes to defeat like a rhythm game. It's like, well, the music is at least this long, so based on your skill, at least this, right?
Or the guy who made like the world's longest roller coaster tycoon level.
Yeah. Well, they say about 75% of the levels were just bad, or like not, like the reason why people hadn't played them wasn't because they were too hard. It was just because they were stupid or bad or not interesting. But so yeah, let's look at this level that
Ads.
Ads.
Just we'll talk over the ads, so hopefully you don't have to hear the ad.
let me switch this over to the YouTubes.
Another ad, more ads.
Mute. So the level that is apparently something like, it's not even a very long drill. It's called Trimming the Herbs. It's like a 17-second. Like you can see this video that he's watching is 25 seconds.
So he's going to watch a video that shows off the level.
It's just
Oh yeah,
Just
there's a lot
utter-
of very specific timing and
just utter malarkey. He's using a bomb to move around here.
That's it.
I guess that's what has to be done. Or is that somebody showing that it can be done? I don't know.
Because it did make me wonder. I'm like, I don't think there's a mechanism built into Mario Maker that saves the winning run so you can play it back. But it seems like you could do that.
not that I recall.
Because if it's all based on telemetry and just the idea of where you are and what you're doing at whatever time, it's like, yeah, if you just capture button inputs and all that, you could basically play back the level perfectly in the engine and just be like, this is how you do it. Ding, 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 and be like, that was the fastest run.
Anyway,
Yeah, but I mean, I've looked up video guides occasionally for stuff where it's just like I can't quite figure out what I'm supposed to do here, and then even when you can figure it out, the ability to hit things at the right button press is
yeah, we're talking
like just knowing doesn't.
multiple frame perfect things.
Yeah.
Knowing is actually not 99% of the battle most of the time in these things.
Knowing isn't even the beginning of the battle.
Yeah.
Doing it certainly is most of the battle.
And if you are out there thinking that you could totally do this, I guess you could talk to Team 0% and see if you can join and then do it for them, and then you can be a hero. You've got before April 8th to do it. So.
And
And
this, if for some reason you're playing Mario Maker on Steam, because it's a Wii U game, so that doesn't make any sense. But anyway,
Just
I'm
go
gonna
on.
I'm gonna
Let's just
press. I gotta
roll
press
down
along
those,
with
those
this. Yeah.
escalators into something else.
Steam is changing up their sharing system.
Yeah, I saw this.
Steam Families, which seems good.
Okay.
Where
There were
we are
definitely some-
we are collectively cautiously optimistic.
There were definitely some interesting questions being asked by people.
So what is a Steam family?
So Steam Family sharing has been a thing
Okay.
for a while, many years in fact, where you can share your. I don't know if it's even called. It's just called like.
I think it was just
Library
sharing. That you could do, and
And
now
you can share your library with other people.
So Heather could share her library with me because
you could only play if I wasn't playing the game.
I see.
Stuff like that. There were restrictions like that.
Yeah. So the big thing about it that frustrated everybody was that a game can only be played in a shared library if the person who owns that library isn't playing anything. So it's not that like the same game can be played by two people. It's that two people can't be playing on Steam, period.
Okay.
So
Which
this
is kind of crappy.
This is different. This is like you agree that you're in the same family. And
That we're
then-
married. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, just like digitally, it doesn't.
But
matter
that's what I mean.
whether-
But like in our case, we're married.
Sure. Yes.
So it's like, let's say you get a game and you want to play Hollow Knight on Steam, and so do I. Then we can both play at the same time.
So this means that with the new system, if you're part of the same family, Heather could be playing Hollow Knight on a Steam version of Hollow Knight, and you could be playing another game on her Steam account,
Oh, I see.
yeah.
and that would be fine. Whereas
It'll
previously,
mush our two libraries together essentially.
I see. Okay.
So some of the questions that have shown up are things like, if I join a family, do I have to show them all of my games?
yeah, right. That's the question.
Can I hide some of my games? What happens if I leave my family?
Why did it? It looks like they
beat The Last
They
Dance.
beat them out like an hour ago.
Yeah.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. Except they beat The Last Dance. That was their actual final level.
Oh, interesting.
Trimming the herbs apparently was not a. It's funny because I don't know if they mean trimming the herbs or trimming the herbs. Because they mean trimming the herbs, that's one thing because they're piranha plants. But if it also was trimming the herbs, as in people who are like fresh and new and don't understand it's a very old slang term, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, devs can exclude their games from family sharing. They've always been able to exclude their games from sharing, and so you can't exclude
Right.
a game from family sharing. Hopefully, people won't.
Yeah. And yeah, we can't play the same copy of the same game
Okay.
in the library at the same time. But
Damn.
it is.
Damn.
So if you think of it more of like how if I buy some Switch games and you buy some Switch games, and it's like we could borrow each other's Switch games.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
That would be great.
Whereas,
But we'd still need our own copies if we want to interact with each other.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
so yeah, you don't get to. But this is already a big improvement over what it was before, which has bitten us here at the office occasionally.
yeah.
Because there's situations where, say, somebody comes in and is like playing a game that they own on their own Steam thing,
Yeah.
and so they'll be like, "Oh, I'll just share it with the Loading Ready Run account,"
Right.
and then they'll play it, and then somebody else will come in, play it, not knowing that it was a shared
Somebody else's,
version,
Yeah.
and then that person goes and logs in on their own Steam thing, and it just kicks us out.
Yeah, we used to have this problem with the PlayStation games because prior to some years ago, we didn't have a Loading Ready Run account set up. I think we were just using Grams for some reason, and so some of us would start to play a game on stream. Graham wouldn't know that they were playing it on the thing, and he'd turn on the PlayStation, and it would boot people out. Like,
Yeah.
What was great about that is at the time, Graham actually used his PlayStation to watch Twitch streams.
Yes.
So he would turn on the PlayStation and log in order to watch the stream, which he then killed
By logging in.
by logging
yeah,
in.
Yep. Wasn't even going to play anything. I think, like, yeah, because I was kind of hoping there'd be this thing, like, if you have a Steam family, then it means that everybody in your family can then play these games, right? And to me, I was like, well, then that means that if in order to get a bunch of people playing Helldivers 2, and it's like, well, let's say 4 people are going to play that, but 2 of them don't own a copy of the game, and I'm like, well, then you can join our family. And and then you could do that. We could actually have like work accounts assigned to the people and be like, you can log in with your work account for a library so you can use our game.
Not everyone can play that game at the same time.
Well, that I'm talking about in the way that I envisioned.
Oh yeah,
what I thought was going to happen.
I get it.
Yeah,
And so, they are, it's tricky with these things, but
Yeah.
they are explicit
Yeah.
in that it's family.
yeah,
And they even say it is intended for a, like, I forget what they call it, like a geographically connected family.
So you have to live in the same household.
So like and that's, people are just like, so like, yeah. So if like my kid goes off to university, he can't be part of the family or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, but like it's probably intended more for that thing of like you want to be purchasing the games, but your kid's account doesn't have a credit card attached or
Yeah.
whatever, that kind of thing.
It is intended for a household of close family members.
Yep.
And Steam will monitor usage and may adjust the rules over time.
Like I know a lot of people exploit this kind of thing. So
You must
yeah.
wait 1 year from joining a previous family to join a new one.
See, and that's funny too. Like waiting
And a family
year.
member slot cannot be replaced until 1 year later.
Like
It's 1 year mourning period.
Look, don't tell me how to run my family, okay?
yeah, like oh god, it's weird because
That's it. You're out of the Steam family.
Like Steam just finds it really suspicious if you
Kid.
get married.
if you get divorced and then you replace them right away.
There's that too, right? Like that's the frustrating thing, I think, is that obviously I get from the business perspective that it's like we just don't want people like jumping in and out all the time and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, yeah, I get that, but this is the thing that frustrates me about where we're at with in terms of account just running accounts. That's like if you have a kid who wants to play video games, you're like, well, the thing to do is not to just give them, because it used to be just like, well, we have an account in the house, so you'll use daddy's account or mommy's account to play the game, right?
Sure. Some people do.
And that's just how you do it.
Yeah.
And then at some point, that kid is like, well, I want to have my own Steam account because I want to buy my own games or some other stuff like that.
So, not to interrupt, but I think the true reason for that is more to do with the way save files tend to be set up now. Is it's a save per account as opposed to many save slots.
Exactly, right? And that's what I mean is that the kid's like, I want to play my own games, or I want to play your games, but I don't have my own save slots, or da 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 da. It's like, okay, so we set up an account for the kid, and they have to be over 13. So anyway, because that's a rule, and so you do that. And that kid now has that Steam account. That's like their Steam account for the rest of their life. So they pick an awful username, and that's their Steam account for the rest of their life. But they're in your family. And then at some point, they're like, I'm still a member of my parents' family, but hey, like I've gotten married, and now my spouse.
What about multi-generational Steam families?
That's what I
is
mean,
you're
right?
saying,
And
yeah.
I'm like, so what happens when then you have a spouse? You're like, so do I invite my spouse into my family that I'm already a part of with my parents, or am I supposed to disentangle myself from this family and go somewhere? And
yeah, most of the time kids move out.
and then they have their own kids, and then you're like, oh, because this is one of these things where, as we've gotten older, like as video gaming has aged, more and more grandparents are playing video games. They're going to be more and more people who are like us, who are going to get into our 60s and 70s, who are going to end up being grandparents who have been playing video games all their lives. That's what they do for entertainment, right? Like watching movies or doing whatever. And like, yeah, we still haven't cracked this idea of, because I don't think it's been around long enough to kind of crack the idea, but we really haven't cracked the idea of how do you manage that kind of thing that I've been buying video games all my life. They're all a member of my Steam library, and then I also have kids in the family, and I have I have
So-
grandkids in the family, and then inheritance is the thing.
I'm gonna say the same things that always upset everybody. You're not buying actual games when you're buying them digital. You're buying them licensed. They do not want you to own them forever and hand them down to your grandchildren.
Yes.
And thus they will not solve that crap.
Sure.
Not whatever.
But I mean, cracking the problem of how do you move a person from one thing to another, and should you or do you, or how do people make those decisions? And then when people start to fall off that family, do you inherit that family from from your grandparents? Or like, well, hey, we're going to make so and so the organizer of the family from now on, because then that way they can maintain it with their own kids and then their own grandkids.
As far as I understand it, all you're doing in this family system is sharing your individual libraries together.
Yeah.
So if an account disappears, and maybe it's the one that heads that family, yeah, you're probably going to need to make a new family, but all of those games are gone.
Sure.
That's just that system is
that's an issue that I think is important to address, but I'm also not even thinking, I don't even want to think about that issue. Just the idea of like, when you start spreading people out like that and being like, oh, we're going to jump to a new family, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And the idea of like, we're going to put a year break. So I'm like, I just got married, so now I have to leave my parents' account of my parents' family so that I can join in with my new spouse. And we have to wait a year before we can actually get together. And I'm like, is that just because someone was like, if someone was like, oh, well, you got to make sure that marriage is going to last.
Paul,
so wait a year
Do
at least.
you know if the family sharing takes out the game sharing thing that they already did? Like,
I
do
believe
these
this
systems exist side by side?
I think this replaces
This
the
replaces
previous
it?
system. And it's important to note that they talk about that like banning or restriction applies to a game,
Right.
not to an account.
Interesting. Okay.
So if your grandma is really
Aimbotting.
toxic in League of Legends,
Yeah.
she could get your entire League of Legends game killed on your account.
On the sharing account, so nobody in the family can actually play League anymore.
Yeah.
Wild. So that's good. That's a great way to definitely lean into your family. Be like, Grandma, we got to talk about.
Your very racist grandmother.
Yeah, you got to stop
playing
being
League.
racist in League.
That's the problem,
Yeah.
really. It's all the racist grandparents who are still playing League.
The issue is beyond just Steam doing this, because every platform has this thing of, like, Nintendo has that with us. We're in a family together.
Yeah, Nintendo has a family thing for their Nintendo online services.
Yeah. Apple has the same thing as well.
Right.
Apple's not even primarily a gaming company, but the idea of like, who do you share with and how do you share those things, and how do you belong to that family, and who's related to that. And it's like, we are introducing these ideas that are also individually, each one has their own narrow definition of what constitutes family and what you're allowed to have and what you're not. The Netflix password sharing is not even a thing of family.
That's not a family sharing thing. That is a thing that they would really like people not doing.
Yeah, but there is that. But that is tied into this idea of having household accounts, shared accounts, family accounts. Like that kind of idea of that if I live in a household and I have Netflix running on the thing, then everyone in the house can use my account for Netflix. But I can make multiple users for Netflix. But then my kid goes off to college and technically he's not allowed to use all of his shared data that was in Netflix is actually part of my account. How does he get that out? He can't. I guess it's not valuable enough for him to have it. Like, anyway.
That might be just okay for them, though. Maybe they don't want all of the shows that they were watching when they were 5 to follow them to college. Like,
it F's up their algorithm.
it just,
I have 2 Netflix accounts. I've got like my regular one, and then I have one that I just call like blank. That has like no, like I scrub the history on it.
Okay.
Because like I find that on my account, I tend to you sort of get into like the loop of like it only recommends the same stuff, and so you watch that stuff, and so you just kind of
Right.
are only watching the same kinds of things over and over again.
Sure.
And then I'll like go over to my parents' place, and I'll be like, there's all these shows on Netflix that I literally have never seen.
Right.
No matter how long I spend like browsing, they just will never show it to me.
Yep.
So I'll have like a separate account that
user,
has
yeah.
a separate user that has no history.
That's great.
So it's like what a completely clean user would see on Netflix.
Yeah.
And I find that kind of interesting sometimes.
I feel like if a company ever does actually crack the nut on this and it come up with a thing that actually makes a lot of sense and people are like, oh, we understand now, that'll be the new paradigm. That'll be the way that people will come at the problem.
Yeah, I just don't know if that there can be a proper shift that makes what would be like the company's values happy versus the consumers.
Yeah, because in a case like, especially with Valve, it's like they're an intermediary between you and the games also, and so they have other people they have to satisfy. So yeah, this is going to be really tough. I think it's an ongoing tough issue, and it's hopefully at some point someone's going to say this is how it's going to be done, and it made sense, and we'll see what happens. Mm-hmm. It's interesting they've done this.
All right, a couple more stories. These are. Well, one of these is sort of only peripherally video game related. These are both 2 D&D stories.
Okay.
All right. First up, there is a new Converse D&D collab. Converse
shoe?
as in the shoes.
Yeah.
Did they let you walk over spike pits?
I don't think so.
Oh, that sounds
Especially
really
since
useful.
like Converse shoes are not known for being like super heavy duty.
Have they considered trying?
You can see.
These are D&D.
Yeah, well, they got the Dungeons and Dragons thing on the.
Yeah, but I mean, I
there's
can write
this
the
is
word.
cool.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's much better.
You can see like that.
I'm just gonna say I can write Dungeons and Dragons on all my shit too. And nobody pays me money for it.
Yup. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's some cool stuff like that. The logo on the side and stuff is pretty neat. Pretty neat. I feel they seem more Converse-y than D&D-y,
Yeah.
which I don't know.
I mean, have you ever gone looking at people who do their own Converse shoes, the different things that they'll do to print and paint and stuff?
Yeah.
Like, they're really cool. These just kind of seem fine.
Wow.
Some sweet shorts. Ah. And then the other bit of D&D news,
Okay.
which is more video game related, is that again it's GDC going on right now, and Larian, the company that made Baldur's Gate 3, just kind of casually mentioned they're not making any Baldur's Gate 3 DLC, and they're not working on Baldur's Gate 4.
Right. Or even on Baldur's Gate 3 too.
Or in fact, anything they're
D&D
not
related,
interested in making future Dungeons and Dragons games.
Yeah, they don't want to work with. Is it?
They haven't said they don't want to work with Wizards of the Coast.
Oh,
anymore.
okay. Sorry, that must have been a social media post I was reading.
Yeah.
But
But it has something. It feels like it has something to do with that. Is the assumption, right?
it's worthwhile to note that yes, a large chunk of the team that Larian worked with is now gone. They lost them in the latest thing of layoffs
okay.
at WotC, which is pretty crappy.
So you can definitely draw some dotted lines if you want to, but these aren't red threads on a
Nobody's
on a
actually
cork
outright
board.
said it.
Yeah.
I respect. Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of people, saying, being very positive in the sense of, respecting that Larian doesn't want to just, do more of the same. That they one jump,
Yeah.
and apparently they're not going back into while they will be doing, they want to do more stuff with the Divinity. Because that was the Divinity was their game that they were doing before
Right.
Baldur's Gate. They're saying they want to do more with that, but the next game that they do is not going to be a Divinity
Yeah,
game.
I mean, Larian's also noted for having said that they don't want to make games that are filled with, like microtransactions and live service style things. They want to make one-player games that you buy once and play.
And they've especially come out
And-
against subscription
And subscription
gaming.
model and whatnot, which is fair, but it also kind of, when you're a dev, if you need support from a specific publisher and you're not making the game that the publisher wants, that is also a reason why you might not end up working with that publisher, because that's just part of negotiations.
And that being said, there are some updates to Baldur's Gate 3 coming out, not DLC, but as we already know, like they already did an update that added a epilogue thing,
Right.
and apparently they're going to be adding some like evil stuff for like characters who want to be evil. So there are going to be some new things, and they're going to be supporting the game and everything like that. But it's just they're not immediately jumping in. There's they want to make sure I guess managing expectations that there isn't like some big Baldur's Gate 3 DLC coming down the pipe.
And I think that's good of them.
Yeah.
I have a lot of respect for Larry.
All right, so that's all of the news I think that I marked in the thing.
I'm trying to like what you showed us for the D&D Converse collab. I'm trying to square my thoughts on it because I won't buy D&D themed stuff to wear on my body generally because I'm not that kind of a fan of it. I'm not a huge.
I would put forward that you're probably not the target demographic for this.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I've played Dungeons and Dragons casually, and I guess technically professionally because I got paid to do it. But I'm not the kind of person who's chasing games to play in that respect.
Sure.
But whenever I see merch, and especially branded merch, I always start to think, because when you have branded merch, you start asking yourself, it's like, well, what do people actually want out of that kind of thing?
I mean, I prefer the thing that's more towards the game, but is not like just Hollow Knight written
And
on
that's what I mean, right? Is like a wearing a shirt or a pair of shoes or whatever. Like the shoes that had the ampersand on them. I was like, that's great, because to anyone looking, if you don't know that's the D&D ampersand, that then they're going to be unaware of, okay, what does that actually mean? It's just a cool piece of art. They're just going to kind of hopefully think that that's a cool piece of art, right? But when you have something on it that has Dungeons and Dragons written on it, or like, it's always feels to me a little bit like I'm wearing the costume that has a mask of Luke Skywalker and says Luke Skywalker on a shirt.
Yeah.
And so I always feel a little bit like, how on the nose do you make the merch? Because I'm also thinking about the merch that we make here, where it's like, how on the nose do you make merch that comes out of our stuff? Because people want to let you know that they like Loading Ready Run, so you have a shirt that says Loading Ready Run on it.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm definitely not somebody who understands the intricacies of fashion, because I mean, you get a Gucci handbag, it says Gucci
all
on
over it.
all over it,
because
right?
the point of
Louis
that
Vuitton's a repeating
is
pattern.
the brand at that point. And for some people, that's why shirts that say the name of the thing that they want is a thing on it. But whereas like some fandom stuff, you kind of like, I don't want a thing that says Scott Pilgrim on it. I want Ramona's cool star bag.
Yeah.
Right?
I like the sort of like slightly stealthy things.
Yeah.
In-universe items are usually what people like the most.
My favorite kind of merch is the stuff that nobody can, people can't out you as being a nerd.
Yeah.
Without outing themselves.
Yeah. I think we all kind of want that.
They're like, haha, you're such a nerd. You've got a Scott Pilgrim shirt. You're like, how do you know what this shirt is? Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn.
and so any of that kind of stuff, like seeing the D&D stuff, I'm like, there's some items in there where I'm like, oh, this is really good, that it's very, but then you showed off a hat that's like, never trust your dungeon master smiling, or whatever it said. Beware your dungeon master smiling. And I'm kind of like, that's cool.
Yeah.
Like a thing that has a slogan on it that you're like, okay, well that means X. But also, if somebody didn't know that you're into D&D, they might think, well, who's your dungeon master? They might think you're into kink. But then again, most people into D&D are into kink.
It's one of the Final Fantasy games. They keep putting out like buy this game and you get this hat with it and just has the logo of the game, but the game logo is really hard to read and all the embroidery and it's like really whatever. And I'm just like, yes, people really want that hat. What?
Yeah, they want a hat that's a mess that isn't. So
I don't know.
I
Merch
wonder
is
about
hard.
that. You can't just make a thing that just has. I mean, you can just make a shirt that has the D&D logo. I have shirts that just have like the Nintendo logo on them because I want that. You know, if we go to like the Nintendo stores anywhere, I will just probably end up buying one of those at the Nintendo store, Tokyo or whatever will say on it. I want one of those. And that is also something I was told when we were running merch, is that it's like you can never go wrong with just putting your logo on a shirt and letting people buy that.
Yeah,
We
that's
do have a
definitely
fairly
thing,
nice
too.
logo that doesn't say loading ready run.
Yeah.
You know,
And those
the
Pride
Pride
shirts,
shirt
oh.
is a shirt I like to wear.
It works so well. That was a fantastic breakthrough.
Like, I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with, say, this style of shirt.
Yeah.
I think it looks kind of neat.
Yeah.
But it's you know, I prefer the Pride shirt in the logo with the rainbow.
Yeah. That's
And
cool
like
too.
D&D has made some cool shirts. Magic has made some cool shirts. The Pride shirts that they've made have been very good, I thought, too. That they're very like representative.
Those are really neat, yeah.
You know, having the rainbow and everything built in, but they're not explicit about what I'm advertising as a part of Pride. And it's like, yeah, don't out yourself as being a nerd unless the other person's a nerd and then they know. So I kind of think the Converse stuff is cool, and I see what they're going for with the art style and everything else. And it's not to my taste, but I think they kind of are walking a pretty good line of, you know, we can write Dungeons and Dragons on this and it can still be interesting, look arty, as opposed to, you know, official anything. Yeah.
Anyway, let's call it there. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. And if you haven't seen this week's episode of ChillPoint, you should do so because it's very funny.
Mm-hmm.
And
You can find all of the things that we were talking about that is our merch, at least, over at store.loadingreadyrun.com.
Thank you, Gap Filler, for pointing out the Overwatch shirts that are currently still on sale on the store. So if you're an
That is
Overwatch
right.
fan,
celebrate Overwatch 1.
yeah,
Look, I'm pretty sure you still have to get on the point in the second one.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
fair.
So, yeah. Thanks, everybody, and we will talk to you later.